right, guys. Welcome to another episode of Cardboard Champs.
Episode 3.
And I am your host, Alex, and I'm joined here by
Adam, aka Doing Spuds.
All right. So today's episode is all about the new player experience, whether it comes to card games or D&D.
Or just your LG local game stores in general.
Yeah. I do want to give a shout out because this was a suggestion by one of our first subscribers and our friends.
Nice. Woo, woo, woo.
And the shout out is to Purple Crystal 2. She is part of my D&D campaign, so she's part of my Discord, and she came up with the suggestion talking about how the new player experience is between both D&D and card games.
Positive, negative, kind of how we, how some of our first experiences were, and how we could, just talking on those and how we can kind of encourage newer players, whether, like I said, you're in D&D or card games. To just kind of hang around and stick around. So,
yeah, and we're going to do this obviously in IRL and also online because they're a little bit different. But I think both the advices can be used in both.
Absolutely.
So let's start out with D&D. How's your new player experience when it comes to D&D?
So, I just started playing D&D. It was fall of 2019. We talked about it with some of the people at our local store. A couple people had groups already, and I'd always kind of been a little interested in it. I do like, it's basically like a real life video game almost, because you can kind of make all the decisions. You can kind of, you can do whatever you want in a way, as long as the DM agrees that it's legal and it's by the rules or whatever.
You can certainly try.
Yeah, you can certainly try. Man, dude, you don't ever want to hear a DM say that. That means either you're gonna do something really cool or you're gonna die. But yeah. So I was kind of excited about it. I do like to make people laugh. I like to role play. I like to cut up and do voices and things like that. Just in general. And so then an outlet to kind of. I always wanted to play a bard. We'll start with that. I always want to play a bard, and for me, being kind of more of an outspoken person, like I'm kind of more, I guess, warm and accepting, kind of just jovial in general.
Outgoing.
Yeah. It wasn't too difficult for me to find people that wanted to play, but I think that. Looking back on it and kind of going everything, it is difficult to find people to play well with sometimes.
That match with what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So some people really like combat. Mm-hmm. Some people really like role playing, storytelling, all the dialogue that's involved with moving a story forward.
And some people just want to go from point A to point B.
Yep. And don't forget the trolls, because there are those people. And as we talk about the positives and the negatives, I think that one being slightly negative, it's okay to be chaotic, right? Mm-hmm. At times, or like say one person is kind of your.
Sorry about that, guys. No, it's not mine.
Oh, it's me. Dang it! All right. Well, you know what? I'm gonna clip that out. All right. So.
We'll go back, guys.
We'll go back. All right. So chaotic, chaos. It is, man. It's okay.
Chaotic can be fun.
It can be fun. It can be funny,
but it has to be in its right moments.
Yeah. So like people just being jerks, just to be for the sake of jerks, or just doing things, just to do it to try to like either get on the DM's nerves or do it to get on another player's nerves. Mm-hmm. Like me and Alex, we've played several games together, and we've done stuff like what was the last one where I think you threw something at me and I stabbed you? And
we kind of got into a somewhat like confrontation where I attacked you, you attacked me back, and then we ended up healing each other. And then in game we apologized to each other, but we also had kind of
it wasn't
stepped into each other's toes as well in character.
Yeah,
but we didn't do it. I didn't do it maliciously. I kind of just did it to like prove a point.
Yeah, and so that's one thing too, with people that kind of get into the characters. Like, and I'll tell people, like, sometimes I'll be a real jerk in the game, depending on the character that I'm playing or whatever's going on. or it might come a certain action or something that I'm doing might come across as like, why he's being, this is awful. Why is he acting like this? You know what I mean? And then I'll, like, after the game, I do apologize outside the character, because I'm like, hey, I just want you to know there's nothing personal. That's, I just feel like that's how my character would act or have talked. And I think that's a big part of D&D as well.
Yeah. It's understanding where those lines are, know, and also be part of a group. The more you play, you will know where those lines are. Who are and who aren't. You're chaotic, and what can and can't you say with that group.
Yep.
Now, my experience with D&D is it's a little bit different, I think. Weird. Because my buddies and I, we graduated college. We were all doing our own thing. And then a buddy of mine who had bought the books was like, hey, have you guys ever played D&D? I've never played, and he's never played. None of us had ever played. And I said, you know what? I've always been interested in it, but I never had anybody come up to me and say, let's play D&D.
Right.
So we all kind of jumped in head first. It was only 3 of us, 1 DM. We had a lot of fun, and we butchered the rules. Butchered it, but we had fun. And that's all that matters in the end of the day, if you had fun, right? It doesn't matter if the rules were butchered or not. The rules are just more like suggestions, I feel like. And the DM can always bend them to whatever he needs to. But my real experience with trying to find a group came when I moved to the West Coast, when I was in Utah, where I went to 3 or 4 different LGSs to their Adventure League to play. Now, as a whole, I feel like everybody was really nice. People want other people to play D&D. But the hard thing, as always, is finding a group that gels well together.
Yep.
Several of the groups I went into, I just didn't mesh well with them. They wanted something out of the game, and I think I wanted something different. And to me personally, my favorite part about D&D is the role playing.
Yeah.
Combat, I enjoy combat. I think combat is where you get the fun. But to me, combat is very much of how much damage I can do as quickly as possible, so combat can be over.
Yeah.
So that's just how I
very
tend to play
analytical
combat.
line.
Yeah. But I have more fun doing the role playing part.
Yeah.
So I tend to look for more role playing group. And I did find a really cool group. It was, like I said, it was always open because it was Adventure League. And our group started meshing so well together that the DM was like, wow, this is the first time I've had a group this organized. And I'm having fun. They're having fun. I'm going to make it a close group and take it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun with that. I have also put together a group online where I just put a PCA saying, hey, I'm looking for 6 people to play or 4 people to play D&D. This is the gist of the story. Send me character ideas, what class, what race, and I'll do a screening to see what works and what doesn't.
Yep.
And I've had people where they played a game or 2 and then they're like, hey, look, I'm not meshing well. And I say, I agree. Or I say, oh, I hate to see it because I thought we were. But if you don't feel it, that's cool.
Yeah.
They left amicably. And then I've had a group that I played online for almost 2 years. Unfortunately, the game couldn't go just because of the timetables is kind of hard. I set up the game when they were in the West Coast. And on the West Coast, I'm talking about like it's a 3-hour difference. So if I play, difficult. I'm playing at almost 1 in the morning until 5 in the morning, and then that's just kind of rough because I work. But as a whole, my experience has been pretty good, other than just having to find a group that meshes well.
Yeah, people are very passionate about D&D. I think that's one cool thing, specifically on D&D. I think a little more than the card games is that the people are very, very passionate. They care a lot about the game. They care a lot about stories and lore, and they want people, for the most part, to have a good time. Like I said, excluding the trolls and the people that are gonna that are there that are only thinking about their self and what they want to do in the game and that kind of thing. Don't let that discourage you. If you try out Adventure League at a local game store, or they're having some event and you're wanting to try it out, like do a one shot. Don't let I feel like most DMs genuinely I feel like there's very few bad DMs.
Yeah.
I think the only time that you have a quote unquote bad DM is one that tries to make it like a game where it's DM versus player.
It's a lot of the times when you have a bad DM, it's because the DM wants it to be all about himself.
Yeah, they basically want to be the overlord. They want to kind of they want to kill the players in game, and that's not. It's not at all. They're storytellers. DMs, they're dungeon masters. They're supposed to be storytellers. They're supposed to guide you and let you make your own decisions and that kind of thing.
Yeah. But also as players, also remember that it is everybody's story. It's not just your story. It's not the party story. The DM is still trying to tell a story with you guys together. So it's never DM versus players. It is everybody at the table having fun,
in
telling
the moment.
a story.
Yep, telling a story. Yep, you were literally writing the book as you play, which is super cool.
Which is really cool. It's the reason why D&D is really, really awesome the way it is. But again, finding that group is very important. And if it's your first time DMing, definitely, I tell you 100% do a one shot. Yeah. It can be scary, but try it if you have friends that want to, have fun. A lot of the times, I feel like when it's your first time either playing or DMing, you
kind of have that nervousness a little bit.
You have that nervousness, but
what was your first time DMing like?
My first time
DMing a game, yeah.
Oh man, this is gonna sound bad. The reason I wanted to DM was because I had a bad experience with a DM.
Oh really? Okay.
I don't think he was a bad DM. I just felt like I could do it better.
That's fair.
So I decided to DM, and I do feel like I did it better. But I also learned that there's a lot of prep.
Yeah, there's a
lot of prep that comes to it, and then it is very easy to tell when you're going off the cuff.
Yeah.
But you have to be good if you're going to do it off the cuff. Yep. And luckily, I can say that I'm pretty good at going off the cuff.
Yeah.
But you still want to have a general outline of what you're doing. So I always try to let my players do what they would want to try to do. I try to do the Matt Mercer thing, where if they're doing something that I think wouldn't work, I try to tell them like, hey, it's kind of like you're trying to do this while you're trying to tell me you're doing this. So just kind of like formulate a plan where you're doing this instead. And then I always do. You can certainly try.
Oh man,
you can certainly try. Which is also something as a whole for players. If you're trying to do something that would be not physically, because D&D does spend a lot of rules, but if you're doing something that would be politically or just socially,
so like each a lot of towns, places you visit, and the stories.
Like if you're trying to go into a throne room and you guys are level 3, nobody knows who you are, and you try to roll for persuasion to try to get in, and you roll a natural 20 with all your pluses, it's still a 30. You're not going to be let in. I'm sorry, but that's just think about it in the real world. There's certain things that even no matter how persuasive you are, if you're just walking up, you're not going to be able to. Now, you're level 10, now all of a sudden you're famous. And you walk up to the guard and be like, hey, look who I am. I'm trying to talk to the queen. And you roll a 30, they're going to be like, hey, look.
We don't normally do this.
We don't normally do this. Let me go talk to the captain and let me see if you can talk him into it.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing. Like,
and those are the cool things. Those are things that you need to think about. Rolling and getting a high roll doesn't always necessarily mean success. And I think for new players, that can also be a bad experience, thinking that success is always a high roll. But the high roll gives you avenues of doing cool things. And bad rolls also give you avenues of really cool things happening because it can be funny.
I almost died 3 times in the first session for Icewind Dale. I slipped, fell in some water, and almost died to the Frost Maiden. And
I mean, I think most of us almost died.
Yeah, we did almost die the first session.
I think that's another whole story, but because Icewind Dale should be a little bit harder, and we learned that he's been using the wrong metrics on traveling. So
we're about to slow down.
So it's definitely going to slow down.
Yeah.
But back to the new player experience. So I definitely think, as a whole, D&D tends to be a pretty good group of allowing new players in.
Yeah.
Now, another thing I also want to bring up is if your avenue to getting into D&D has been watching Critical Role or any of the other D&D online,
Mm-hmm.
also remember that you are not an actor.
Yep.
Now you can try to be an actor. That's good for you.
Or you might be an
you
actor
might be,
actually.
and you're really good at voices.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
But not everybody else is.
Yeah.
So there might be somebody at the table who isn't comfortable doing the voices, and they might
And
just
that's
use the
okay.
regular. And that's 100% okay.
Yeah.
Not everybody has to do voices. Now, if they slowly start getting comfortable doing voices, that is awesome. But you also need to, if you do the voices, you jump in, that's great. But don't expect everybody else to do it and get upset when everybody else doesn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just again, that comes back to
it's supposed to be fun.
yeah,
right?
It's supposed to be fun. We're not trying to push people to doing something they're uncomfortable with.
Like you don't play a video game to get frustrated unless it's Dark Souls, and
I don't get frustrated with Dark Souls.
I don't want to talk about it. But generally, when you play a game or D&D or you hang out with your buddies, like you're trying to have fun. Like you're trying to have a good time.
Exactly.
And so,
man, if you're not having fun with your friends, I think you need to find new friends.
Yeah, you need to find new friends. So.
Yeah, if they frustrate you more than they're having fun, you need to change friends.
But I think with D&D, like I said, the voices, the things like that, you want to have fun, and you don't want to shame anybody for not doing it the way you think it should be done, in that sense of the thing. But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
D&D is such a good game.
It's really fun to play.
Get people together. Yeah.
And then another thing is if you've had a bad experience, and having bad experiences always lets people it discourages people to try it again.
Yep.
I encourage you to find even a small group of people that you trust and you think you could have fun together, and try it again.
Absolutely. And if you guys, I know a lot of our early listeners are some more friends and family. If maybe it's somebody we haven't talked to a whole lot about D&D, and you're interested to try to play a game or want to learn, let us know, because we got you. We'll introduce you to everything, and we'll play a one shot or a little thing with you to kind of let you see what it's all about. So
yeah, I think that's really cool. If you want to get interested in it, there's a lot of online tools. Something like D&D Beyond just gives you a lot of the easy ways to get.
Roll20 is also a good website.
Roll20 is an online website that if you don't find a group, obviously right now it's a little bit harder to find a group, especially because of what's going on in the world. But if you do find an online group, Roll20 is going to be your big playground.
Yeah. We just saw some new updates at D&D Beyond that if you're in a campaign together, you can actually see everybody's roles now.
Your roles, yeah, it's
you
really
do
cool.
it digitally.
So it looks like maybe Roll20 is just going to be used for a visual asset instead of for everything else, which is really cool.
But both are great resources.
Great resources. If you're interested in playing, I do recommend the Player's Handbook. And if you're interested in DMing, the Dungeons Manual,
and Tasha's and Xanathar.
Yeah. So really, 3 books is what's required: is the Player's Handbook,
Monster Manual,
and then the Monster Manual, and then the Dungeons Master's Guide are the 3 required if you want to be a Dungeons Master, so a DM. If you want to be a player, you really need the Player's Handbook.
Yeah.
If you want more options, there's Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and then Tasha's Cauldron to Everything are the other 2 books I would say are cool. If you're not so used to doing one-shots, there are starter kits that will help you start a single adventure one-shot that's easy. It tells you exactly what to do. Pre-made character sheets.
Yep.
It'll get you, into the door.
Those are only like $20.
Those are $20. Yeah,
That's
it gives
good.
you even a set of dice.
Yeah.
So it's really easy, really cool, easy to get into. It's a lot of imagination. Sometimes you don't have to use minis.
Yeah.
You can use dice as the mini of the creatures you're fighting. I do that a lot. If you do have a lot of minis that you would like to try, you can also do that. It gives you an avenue to even a new hobby of painting if you like doing that. And if you don't like doing that, then you can have pre-painted already, or pay somebody to paint them if that's what you like.
But we definitely encourage everyone to give D&D a shot. Dungeons and Dragons, as it were. And even if you had a bad experience in the past, or just jump on in.
I bet you everybody can have fun playing D&D.
Yep.
No matter what age group you are and what the table is. I've had groups where we have children all the way up to 60-year-olds, and we all have fun together.
Yeah. That's the beauty in it.
Yeah. So back to the player. I think the first player experience with D&D tends to be a lot better than
than the card
else.
games. Yeah.
So switching over to our namesake again, to the cardboard.
Cardboard. Oh man, so much to talk about on this one.
So cardboard. So as a whole, this will cover really any card game. So that is Yu-Gi-Oh, general, Magic, Pokemon, Dragon Ball Super, Digimon. There's so many out there. But from our personal experience, we're going to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Super, and Digimon even now.
Yeah.
So I think the first time going to an LGS, which is your local game store, to play tournament or to play casually, can be a little scary.
It can be intimidating for sure.
Yeah. You're going out to play something that as a whole in society is still looking to be taboo for some reason. People are still a little bit ignorant about you playing card games. So if you go out in public, you feel like you're going to get scrutinized for it.
Yeah.
But it also is very, I think for the most part, LGS tried to be a safe haven for people who want to play these card games.
Yeah. We're generally very accepting.
Yep.
Place, no matter your background or what you believe, we come together over cardboard.
Yeah. But not everything is always sunshine and rainbows, unfortunately. I do think the card game community, depending on where you go, can be not as opening.
Yep.
And as a whole, I do think it's part of the community to make it.
It's our duty to, as players, to make the card games more acceptable, right? Because what does it matter? Whatever, say you're super into meta, you got all these top tier decks, right? What does it matter if you have those decks if no one comes to play? I remember when I was little. So me and my brother and sister, we lived way out in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina for part of our childhood.
Living in the middle of nowhere.
But I really liked Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, and me and my brother and sister all played together. We would buy the packs and we'd make some of these terrible decks, like no kind of synergy at all. And
you played the game wrong too.
It probably did play the game wrong. I remember being like, that's what they did in the show. That's not at all how these cards work.
Yep.
That's another little side point. But I would play against my brother and I would consistently win. And my mom she would literally tell me, she would say, look, if you don't let your brother win a game or two here or there, you're not gonna have anybody to play against, because we live so far out from everyone else. And so I was like, all right, you're right. And so I would let him win a couple of games here and there, right? And that's just going on to the thing that, like, well, what good is your card game if you're not trying to support new players? You're not trying to get new people into it. You're not trying to, because for me, I love Pokemon just as a franchise. I love Digimon. I love Magic the Gathering. Again, the lore, the cards. I love Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, the anime, the cards. The card game's kind of frustrating for me a little bit, but it's only because I don't spend as much time playing that one specifically, just because I do play the other ones more. But I care about these games and I want to see them succeed, both locally with our friends and group that we play with, and for our local stores, because they stay open on the support of players like us that play the D&D, play the card games and things. So
yeah, I know my experience. Again, I've been, since I was young, I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh when I was in California. And if you see a kid playing, man, the worst thing you can do is go to that little kid, look at their trade stuff, and take their best stuff and give them crap back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do not do that.
Don't do that. You are a grown adult.
Yep.
You are a grown adult. You can, if you can't put aside $20 out of your paycheck every week, bi-weekly, or every month to purchase the cards you need,
just don't take them from someone else.
Don't take them from a little kid who legitimately gets $3 every now and then to buy a pack, pulls the good card. Like, trade them. You know, a lot of the time the kids don't even know the value of their cards, and they just want to have fun and play. So that's one thing that I feel like the community does need to do better. Luckily, our local game store, our group, for the most part, tends to be very welcoming.
Yep.
And if they see that happening, they will step in.
that's what we talked about a little bit before the recording. We do have some. I think they're around 10, 11 or so. 8. I'm not sure exactly their ages. They've been playing there for a few years.
They're actually, I think, a little bit older. But
yeah, I think they're a little bit older now. But I remember, the card games between Pokemon, Dragon Ball Super, and stuff that they've played. I've always tried to, if they open packs or they do things in store, I'm like, hey, let me see what you get, right? And to try to help them out because they might pull a card that's worth $100, $150, $200, and they don't know. Like some of them they don't have phones to just Google TCG Player or whatever market source to see kind of what they're going for. And so I'm like always like, hey, hold on to this. If someone wants to trade you for it, that's cool, but let me know. I do tell a lot of people too. You see a lot of kids come into the stores with fake Pokemon cards, like from like Wish and stuff. And I tell people all the time, the parents, I say, hey, look, I don't recommend kids taking their cards to school. And I tell them, make sure if they're going to trade that you check with an adult first before you kind of swap cards, just because we want to make sure everybody's getting a fair shake on trades. We want to make sure that nobody's getting taken advantage of, because again, depending on where you go, I think for most part our locals is pretty, for the most part, pretty legit, pretty up on the up and up, and we kind of all look out for each other in that way. But we want to make sure that everybody's having a good time, but they're also not just giving away money. They're not just having people do them wrong in that way.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a big one. Another thing is, I personally, whenever I play against a younger kid, and I've gotten punished before for it, but I do tend to let off the throttle a little bit. I don't try to stump them or beat them as hard as I can. Again, they're little kids. A lot of the times they don't have the best decks. They're just trying to play for fun. So I'll let them win, and I'll let them, I keep it at the seat of the pants, like they're actually playing like they're protagonists in the game, And sometimes I'll let them win the whole match. Sometimes I won't. It all depends on the kid, because I'll be honest, if they're jerks about it, I tend to try to
you try to win.
I try to win, and I try to teach them a lesson.
Yeah.
And if they're like fun and we're having fun together,
it's fun.
Then I'll let them win. It's I don't. To me, I've played a lot, and I've won a lot, and I have a lot of things in my belt already, a lot of trophies for say, if you really care about that. So to me,
what does it matter to win a regular Wednesday night tournament or Friday night? Like it's
just another game.
Yeah, it's just another game. Now, however, if the stakes are higher, there's a $25, $30 pay-in for some big event.
Yeah.
Kid gloves come off.
Exactly. So it's 100% understandable if I'm going to a regional event where usually there would be easily over 100 people in. Obviously right now it's a little different.
Yep.
But even if we go into a case tournament where I pay $20 to get into the tournament, and then the payout is roughly around $300 worth of cards,
you're there.
Of course, I'm there to win. I'm gonna play, even if I play a little kid. Unfortunately, it is a little higher stakes.
So might make it close though. But not gonna lose.
Yeah, but I'm not going to lose. So that's one of the things that I try to do. Even if, let's go away from the little kids. Let's say there's a new player who hasn't played in 2-3 years. This is his first time at locals. We actually just had a guy show up last week, and I could tell he was nervous. His teeth were clattering. He was stuttering as we were playing, and multiple times he told me, "Hey, look, I'm new. I'm sorry, I'm taking so long." And I told him, "Dude,
it's cool,
bro. Just relax, do your thing.
We're just hanging out. It's, again, going back to having fun."
Yeah, and I let him have the win. 100% let him have the win. I did get a little bit chastised by some of the people in the store, like, "Oh, how'd you let him get the win? He's not even playing a tier 1 deck." But I didn't let that bother me because, for one, I was playing a very meme deck, which I pulled off the meme on game 1, and I said game 2 and 3, you know what, you got it, bro. You OTK me. Do the thing.
Just do the thing.
Do the thing. Because I would rather have that single player come back every week.
Yep.
Than lose a player because I was a jerk.
You curb stomped him, or you were a jerk to him.
Because unfortunately, card games are competitive. There's always going to be a winner and a loser. Occasionally there isn't, but there's supposed to be always a winner and a loser. and losing sucks.
It does. Yep.
And yes, technically what I'm doing is giving them like a participation trophy kind of, but when it comes to it, winning still feels like winning. Also, don't be a jerk and be like, "Hey, I let you win."
Oh my
I'd
gosh.
never let any of
Don't
my
ever,
don't do that.
Don't. So we're gonna cover this in a later podcast, like some more etiquette, I guess, kind of stuff and things, and how to become a better player. But I know one of the worst things that I hear, and people say this to new players too, is like, well, if I'd have had one more turn, or if I would have done this, like I had the win in my hand.
Yeah.
And things like that, and that's really discouraging. It kind of it takes away from their victory, even if you let them win, right? Like, then don't turn around and try to like bash them for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I will always obviously a little harder now with the masks, but I'll smile and I give them a fist bump, like you got it, buddy.
Yep.
And then even with people that so there's people that I've played with in the store that've known me for years. That they've probably beaten me. I can count how many times they've beaten me in my hands, in one hand, legitimately. They've beaten me.
He needs more than two hands to count for me.
I can actually in Yu-Gi-Oh probably one hand.
All card games.
All card games probably. Yeah. But the amount of times I have lost to some people, I can definitely count it in one hand. And I know when they beat me, they get really excited, and I try and sometimes I get upset. Just because you get upset when you don't draw well or you could have done something better and then they lost you the game. You do get upset, but I don't try to disparage the win. Because it is their win and their excitement for winning
is worth more than me trying to discredit it.
Exactly.
Yep. Absolutely.
And the reason why I say that a lot is when I was maybe 12, I was going to LGS a lot. I remember the first time I went, I had an illegal deck because I was playing all the banned cards. I was playing 3 Change of Hearts, 3 Monster Reborns. I was playing all the banned cards.
Nice.
The guy I played against instantly gave me the game loss. Instantly. He said, "You can't play that deck. It's illegal." He called the judge. And then the judge was going to be cool enough to make me help me make a deck and play it out. And the guy was a complete jerk and was a jerk, and he just said, "No, I won." So because of that, I got a bad experience on my first time ever going, and it was the first time I had ever gone. But the judge was cool. He sat next to me. He went through. I had a bin, like a shoe bin of cards. And they were all loose. Yeah. And if you have cards, you know how much of a pain it is to sort through cards.
Oh, it's awful.
So he sat there for basically the whole tournament because I basically said I didn't want to play anymore.
Yeah. Understandably.
Understandable. He made me a deck, and and obviously Yu-Gi-Oh is very complex, so I wasn't playing correctly. And I took that deck he made me, and I slowly but surely learned how to play the game. I went from going all losses to slowly winning 1 consistently, then winning 2. Next thing I knew, I was winning 3. And I remember the very first time I beat one of the better players. I couldn't believe it. Like I remember he said, "You got it, buddy," and I went, "Wait, what?" He said, "Yeah, you win." I said, "No, you're kidding." He goes, "No, yeah, you got it." And awesome. I remember because I couldn't believe it, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I beat one of the better players!" And I remember getting second that game, that tournament. I think it took me like another month to be able to get on top again. But just that experience of beating one of the better players and just being able to I took the loss. You got me. You go, buddy. Even if they're adults, because some of these guys are adults.
I have people do that in Magic. Even still, I think I'm fairly competent at Magic.
You're actually pretty good at Magic.
I don't know that I'm the best player that plays where we regularly play, but I do know some of the players when we play drafts and stuff. They're like, "Oh man, I finally beat you in a draft," or "I finally beat you." And it's cool. It's cool. I mean, I don't know that myself should be the pedestal of accomplishment. But I'm glad that you got enjoyment out of it. As I enjoyed trying to win. I enjoy the games a lot with people. I enjoy also too. Side note, you'll meet some people that take he talked about the guy that was a jerk about game loss and all that. You will find some people that are very competitive that I remember this one guy. You know what? Oswaldo. Oswaldo, if you're listening, this is for you. I remember.
Name drops.
No, I love Oswaldo. He's like one of my best friends. Love this guy to death. I think he's made me a better Magic player. Playing against him, playing against the higher competition. But when he first started coming to the store, I remember he was very competitive. Like, he was a nice guy. He wasn't like a jerk about it. But he would kind of be quiet and kind of like very straightforward when we play. I am very outgoing. This is what I is. This is how I am. So I made it a point to try to make him laugh or like kind of cut up in every game we would play, even though we were still playing serious. I would try to like kind of poke at him, and I'd be like, "Come on, Oswaldo, I know you got that counter spell. Don't play with me," kind of stuff like that. And then after a while, he would kind of laugh and pick fun, and he like we still
break down those barriers.
Yeah, we break down those barriers, and even you can still play competitive. You can still be playing to win, whatever. And just be kind of have fun with it. Yeah. I think that's good. And Cast also, man, he's still good. He wrecks me on the regular.
Yeah, I enjoy playing against him because so we'll play. I'll take a game out of it, and then I can see his whole tonal shift because I'm known and I know people see me, and then I play all the different card games but I particularly tend to stick to Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
So whenever I do play Magic, the guys kind of get a little upset because they're like, "Oh, here comes Alex gonna play Magic," and he's pretty good at Magic too. So whenever I do play, and then I'm playing against somebody like Oswaldo, who I've only played like twice.
Yeah.
So we're playing, and I'll game a game at him. I know it kind of gets a little bit under his skin a little bit because he's like, "Come on," and then he stomps me the next two. So, and I'll say this in a podcast here.
Yeah.
I know I'm not that great at Magic. I don't put a lot of effort into it because I know Magic is very complex, and I just don't have the mind. Like, it's not that I don't have the mind for it. It's just I don't have the.
There's so much more to think about to try to spend the effort, and that's me for Yu-Gi-Oh right now is trying to spend all the time and learn all the combos and learn what you got to out and when to out it. And
so Yu-Gi-Oh for me feels more natural.
So, yeah.
So. But yeah, and I know I also fall victim to sometimes when I'm playing, I tend not to talk. So I come off a little bit like
I try and cut with Alex too.
Yeah. So what's ironic is like when I don't know the person, I tend to be more serious. But once I get to know you, I'll cut up the whole entire game. Like when I play against certain guys in the store who are some of the better players, and then we should be taking it more serious. Yeah. We don't. We're laughing the whole entire time. Yeah. And I think it also shows that, once you get to know somebody, it makes it a little bit easier. Yeah. But once I notice that they're easily, like, they're a new player, they're a little kid, I tend to, step off the gas a little bit.
And then also, too, so that was kind of more directed towards your veterans, if you will, the regulars to the LGSs, taking care of these newer guys and gals. On the other side, as a new player, I think deciding what you want to do. So there's like we talked, there's many levels of how you can play card games. So you can play competitive, you can play for fun, you can do both in a way, right?
Yep.
And it's kind of deciding what you want to do. Like when you're coming up there, like I remember the first time I tried Modern, like when I started getting back into Magic, I hadn't played in forever. And I wanted to play in this Modern tournament, and I actually put actual Counterspell in my deck. The card is definitely not Modern, and I remember because I didn't really know. Like I was whatever, it's not like standard and then some, right? And I remember playing in the tournament, and I went to Counterspell something, and the guy goes, "Wait," and he's like, "That's not legal." I was like, "What?" He's like, "You can't play Counterspell." I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Oh, that's not legal? Why nobody tell me?" I was like, "Oh, that's my own fault. I should have looked it up better." But the guy's cool about it. He's like, we'll just say that was a negate, and then we'll swap them out after the round or whatever. But in going and say, you find out your deck's different, or you need to fix these things, or like something might not be standard legal or what have you. taking the advice of some of the guys
Some more seasoned players.
legitimately want to help.
Yeah.
I know people ask me. I know for Magic, I know people ask Alex in Yu-Gi-Oh, hey, I want to play X archetype, or I want to play this kind of deck. What should I put in it? How should I build it? What should be the goal?
Mm-hmm.
And I will say on a side note on that, the frustrating part is when you tell these people the advice
And they
and
don't
then
take it.
they completely ignore it.
Yeah.
But deciding kind of what you want to do, and you don't have to do it early. Like, I'm not, we're not saying, your first time show up to the locals, you go, okay, I want to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do, super awesome. If you don't, it's super awesome too, because it's about having fun. But if you do want to get competitive, ask some of the guys, because people will tell you. I would say collectively take advice of people that you see regularly winning, because either they either know what they're doing or they're playing good cards, or both. I would say that it's a good start to try to do that. And there's a lot of resources online as well to look up, deck lists and things of that nature too. So
yeah, and like back to taking advice, I get asked a lot. I think if I show up to a tournament, a lot of the times I don't get to play in the tournaments anymore. But if I show up, there's always 1 to 2 guys that will ask me, "Hey Alex, how will you build this?" or "What do you think of this build?"
mm-hmm.
A lot of the times, people do take my advice.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are asking for advice is advice. You can take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're particularly asking somebody for it, take it to heart.
Yeah.
I tend to be the type of guy that I'm not going to tell you to take out a $10 a dollar card and put in $120 card instead.
Yeah.
Heck, I won't even buy $120 card just to put in a deck. So I tend to be mindful when it comes to budget and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
When I tell you. But if you are trying to hit that competitive level, and you do ask me, because I tend to be more in the competitive. I do play casual. I'll play the meme decks. I think meme decks are fun.
Meme decks
but
are
I
fun.
also don't expect to win.
Yeah.
So if you are playing for fun, there are always going to be people that play at a tournament, local tournaments. Even though the stakes aren't high, there are stakes,
yep.
and people want to play to win.
Yep.
There's always a winner. There's always a loser.
Yep.
So with that in mind, if you are playing for fun, have fun when you're playing. Try your janky combo. When you pull it off, like,
we'll let funny. People. Sometimes we'll let people win just because they're
yeah. I'll let you win if you pull a janky combo and I go, huh, that's cool.
If you Exodia me, I'm here for it. That's hilarious.
I played Exodia.
That's so great.
I played Exodia with Shadows, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So, if it happens and you win with it, that's cool. You know, but also, like I said, it's have your expectations. You know, and now if you're playing competitively, and you've never played competitively before, having the good cards does not mean you're always going to win.
Yep.
There is some point skill does have to get you there.
Yep.
So, a lot of the good players, they will notice you make plays. They won't tell you during the game, or if they do tell you during the game, that's cool. But a lot of times after the game, they will tell you, hey, you should have done this and this instead.
Or did you have this
or
card?
Did you have this in your hand?
Yeah.
Like, every single play you do, a good player will automatically think they don't have this, or they're doing this because of this.
Yep.
So don't take the criticism bad. They're not letting you know, oh, you lost because you did this. They're letting you know generally because they want you to be a better player.
Yep.
Every single time I play against one of the better players and I lose, we always tend to discuss the match, because I'll tell them, okay, I did this because of this and this, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, you played around it and I had it, and I'm like, okay, so I did the best I could.
Yep.
With what I had.
Yep.
There was no way for me to win. Now, if I misplayed and they're like, oh no, I didn't have this, but you knew I didn't have it, then I should have been like, oh, why? Okay, I played myself, and it happens.
Like if you're playing against Invoked, never ash the terraforming.
Yeah, yeah, because more than likely they have an Alistair.
They probably already have the Alistair in hand.
Yep.
And they're going to do it anyway.
Yep. And then if they normal summon the Alistair and you Ash and they have the invocation, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah,
it happens. It happens.
It just sometimes they have it.
Sometimes they have it.
I learned that one pretty early. I ashed that terraforming, and then literally the guy goes, "You should never ash the terraform and play Alistair." And I'm like, "Dang it!"
Yep. So there's certain little tricks like that that'll get you there. Yeah. Like half the time I don't even ash the Alistair anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang.
But at the same time, having 2 invocations is more valuable than having the one. Yeah. So that's why you always ash the Alistair, because if they don't have the invocation, they can't do anything with the Alistair. Yeah. And if they do have the invocation, they'll just do the loop anyways. But if they have 2 invocations, then Alistair's live. Yeah. So it's just more complicated than what it is. But so that's one of the things that I would say. Keep in mind, if you're a new player, if you are being competitive and you're not winning, don't get upset and take the criticism.
Like I've been playing Magic for close to a decade, more than a decade, almost 2 decades.
This man knows almost all the cards.
Yeah, it's awful. This guy had a binder, so he wrote down on notebook paper card names of stuff he was looking for decks, and I would literally read the card name and I could see the card, like the art and everything in my head, and I'm like, this is awful. I don't like this.
And he knew
like what it did or what rarity. I'm not saying I know every single card,
but he knows a lot.
But man, and that's part of it. Like you're not gonna get that knowledge in a night.
Heck, I would say even in maybe 3 months you won't get that knowledge.
Yeah.
Not unless you actually sit down with somebody
and work on it. Yeah.
I know one of our better players in the store. I know me and him sat down and I'll say like I coached him. But just seeing him how he plays now compared to when I first met him, it's like night and day. Because he'll beat me all the time, and I'm like, cool, he outplayed me, or whatever happened, like he had the better hand or whatever it was. So I go, cool, because I remember when I used to play him, I was like, oh, this is free win.
All right.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it out loud.
Yeah.
But like I knew I would play him, and I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm going to win this game because he thinks this way or he does this. Austin, one of our better players. I actually had to tell him because he had a really bad tail, and that's how I used to beat him all the time at first, because he would do things and he would add a card and he wouldn't shuffle his hand, so I always knew if he searched a trap card, I knew where he was putting his things before, because he had a really bad tail. Yeah, and so did Jared, one of the other players. He had a really bad tail as well. So I told both of them, like, hey, you have this tail. You always do this and this and this. And they're like, no, I don't. I'm like, yeah. And then they slowly caught themselves doing it, and then they slowly got rid of that habit.
I shuffle cards incessantly all the time. I feel like there's card players in general.
Yeah, but people shuffle their cards because they're anxious or because they're waiting. Yeah. Sometimes people will only shuffle when they're waiting. Yeah. They'll do their plays, and they won't actually shuffle their hand after they're done searching. Yeah. Which is really important, because if you don't, I'm looking at your hand and I'm looking at your board consistently to see how you misplay and see where your cards are at.
I'll never forget because of the card shuffling. I was at a Dragon Ball Super. It was like a regional. There was like 200, almost 300 people there.
I know the story.
Yeah, and so, man, I could have been. Out of with 250 people or something like that, they cut the top 8, and so I'm like,
so cutting to top 8, to kind of let you guys know what that means is, if there's 250 people, usually that would be 8 to 9 rounds of playing, and because of how rounds work, you essentially there is still randomized luck when it comes to a card game. So what these companies and tournaments do is they'll cut the top 8, so the best 8 players not best players, the top 8 players with records. Yeah. Instead of just saying, okay, you had the best record, so you're going to be number 1, we're going to cut the top 8, the best records, the top 8, and now they're going to play against each other.
So they'll play another mini tournament after the fact to decide who was the ultimate winner.
Who's the ultimate winner? Yeah. So that's what decides number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8, and then 9 to 32 tend to get something else, but they don't get to play again.
So I was like, I was X1 going into like the very last round, which I'd only lost one game out of like 8 rounds. And so shuffled my hand up. I was playing Trunk Storm in Dragon Ball Super. It was a deck that usually wanted to win on turn 2 or turn 3. I'm not gonna lie, I do play. I have fun playing the fun decks, but if there's money on the line, which was the case here, I'm gonna play the best deck. Like I feel like for most of the card games that I play outside of Yu-Gi-Oh, just because I haven't spent much time on it, I can understand or figure out any of the decks that I want to play, whatever the meta deck is. So anyway, I was playing the deck. You want to win on turn 2 or 3. There was a card called Bad Ring Laser. It also had very similar art to what's the counter attack that there's like a counter attack card that shuts your whole opponent's like attack for the turn. Anyway, they have very similar art. They were both yellow cards. I was shuffling. I had like a 30 card hand because you draw so many cards in that deck, and I'm sitting there shuffling it, and I literally only had to attack with one more guy, and I knew he had the counter spell or the counter attack in his hand, and this was a counter. So basically, I go to attack, he counters, it stops the attack. In response, I counter his counter, and then my attack gets to go through, and it would have been lethal because the guy would have been like 200 billion freaking attack points, just as figurative number. It wasn't actually that, but it was actually like 200,000.
30 cards in your hand, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so Mira would gain. It was Mira Creator Absorbed. It would gain 5,000 attack for every card in your banish.
Oh, banish.
In your banish,
Okay.
and you had to banish basically your whole grave to play it for the turn that you play it, and then it leaves the field.
Gotcha.
So attacking for an infinite amount of attack. And so I'm thinking I have the card in my hand. I'm like, all right, I got this game because you can't counter in the colors he was playing. Go to swing. He's like, man, you got the bad ring. You got it. And I'm like, yeah, I got the bad ring. And I go to shuffle my hand and look for it. And I was like, wait a minute. Oh, it was Flying Nimbus was the other card. I was like, oh no, I don't have it. And I was so upset. I got 10th. I got 10th in that tournament. Just missed out on top 8 because I'm a dumb.
That's what we call bubbling in the card game sphere. When you're almost there, that means you bubbled. You were really close
to making that top cut. Because top cut's where you want to be if you're playing competitive.
Yeah.
You want to be in that last group of guys still grinding out. And also too, just speaking on hopefully we get to do big events again. Hopefully the pandemic, all this stuff kind of starts to relieve itself and things can go back to normal before too long. Staying hydrated, eating a proper diet, and that goes for even just for locals.
Or sleep.
Those are biggest things. Like,
I know for myself speaking, I know I don't get to sleep the night before.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't because I'm thinking too much.
Yeah.
But if you're not like me and you can actually sleep, I recommend to sleep.
8 hours, 9 hours. Don't overthink it too much and that whole thing. But that's a general life hack in general. Eat right, sleep, drink a lot of water, stay hydrated. I want you guys to be hydrated.
Yeah, it's important.
It is important.
So like I said, the player experience with card games, I think it's all based on your local LGS, and I think as established community and players, we need to do our best to have people feel welcome, whether
facilitate
that is
a good environment.
Yeah, whether that's giving players advice.
I give cards away a lot too.
Giving cards away. A good example right now is in Digimon. Digimon's a brand new card game. The set is actually officially dropping,
I think this week.
And then there's been the card pricing for the sealed product and even for the singles is insane.
Yep.
So me and Adam have tried our best to get that community keep going, and it hasn't been the easiest, but
a lot of people. So starter decks are normally $10. Booster packs are normally $4. Yeah. People online are asking for $50 for the starter decks. They do have we're gonna say meta relevant cards in them. We got like getting all the cards for a set, or like if we're playing a format or whatever, we like getting most of the cards, so we can
multiple sets of them,
so we can build whatever decks we want to build. And so as people have been like, either I can't afford it, I don't want to hang around for it, it's just because it is a lot right now. We've tried to, but before you sell those cards online, let's work out a deal, and that way we can keep the cards local. And I know for both of us, we have the cards to really build multiple of just about any deck, even the most expensive ones. Like we've got playsets of like Omnimon and stuff like that.
So we have places to build one of the best decks where we can build two of them if we need to. I try not to play it all the time anymore now that I have like other decks I can play. That way people don't feel like I'm
like, oh, it's Omnimon again, because it is the best deck,
because they're getting stomped all the time for the same decks. Again, going back to the player experience, to try to not always play the best deck, especially when people aren't playing the best deck all the time. People are trying to play for fun. So sometimes even reading the
room in a way,
that way can also help out a lot. But on top of that, bulk, just cards that in general,
commons, uncommons.
People
are still trying to charge a lot of money for those online.
Those are cards that typically aren't worth a lot, but people are selling them for a ridiculous amount of money. So even them, I know we had a group come on Sunday, and then I gave a lot of that stuff away. I didn't ask for anything back, just to continue the community growth. So giving cards away, especially if they're not worth a lot, or
letting people use cards or decks while they're borrowing stuff while they're there.
And then reading the room, not always playing super competitively, letting people play the game, and that type of stuff. Occasionally taking an L to build a community is not a lot to ask for, I feel like. So that type of stuff really helps the community. Also, when somebody new is around, try not to stick to your clique all the time. Talk to them.
Try to make it a point to. I know I try to do that. Like when we've done Magic drafts, I try to make sure I talk to everybody there. It's, if it's a new player and we get matched up, I try to like conversate with them while we're playing. Hey, how long you been playing Magic for? How you like this?
I'll do the thing where if I play a new player, I'll make it an effort to ask how they're doing after every round. So how'd you do? Oh, I won. Awesome. And I'll sit there and listen to them tell me about their combo and how they won. Or if they lost, I'm like, oh, I lost. I'm like, oh, it's okay, buddy. Blah, blah, blah. And then when it's time to go home, I ask them, hey, will you be there next week? And like, awesome. I'll see you next week.
I try to do that for even like when I'm not playing, just like at the store. I'll, hey, how'd your round go? Or how'd you do? Or, and that kind of thing.
Make them feel like you care and they're part of that community. It's really important.
Definitely.
So key takeaways is, be welcoming.
Most of it's common sense. Don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk. Don't try to skimp people when it comes to trading. Like if you're new TCG player, it's really nice to learn your pricing. That way you don't get, part of it has to be, some accountability has to be on you as well. If they're kids, for the most part, the responsibility is on you as an adult
to not try to juice them.
Because you are an adult. So I think that's one. Taking criticism well. And then and also the opposite, when you are if you're the experienced player and you lose, don't try to
discredit their
win. But I think those are the best ways to get into the community. If you're interested, people are always,
again, we shout it out every video.
Gamer
I'm
Sally.
Ask for some royalties. No, I'm just kidding.
No. Gamer Sally is great experience anytime I go there. I remember last story here when I hadn't played Yu-Gi-Oh for 4 years. I quit when I started college. I went my 4 years, hadn't touched a single card at all, and decided that I wanted to play again. Went to Gamer Sally. I was nervous as heck because I hadn't played in so long. I'm like, will my skills transfer over? Like we're playing an MMO. Will my skills transfer over? Will the people be cool? Man, and everybody Gamer Sally was so nice, very welcoming. I guess it kind of helped that I beat one of the best players there on my first day. So everybody was kind of like, oh my God, this guy's good. We want him to keep coming. So I guess that kind of helped a little bit. And also the fact that I think I wasn't a jerk. Also helped people be like, hey, this guy's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I
That
think
was my first time meeting Alex. Was that day?
Yeah, that day. Yeah. I remember because everybody kept like being super nice, and I wasn't used to that because a lot of the LGSs that I used to go to
They're very cliquey.
were very cliquey. Were very like be good or not be good type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was expecting. So I was kind of like I expected me not to come a lot. But then everybody was super nice, and I'm like, okay, cool, yeah. And then next thing I know, I was going every time you guys had a tournament.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think the player experience when it comes to card games is very much twofold. You have to be open and nice, just like everybody else's experience has to be open and nice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But man, yeah, card games, D&D, some we're very passionate about. So I kind of started this. I mean, we'll talk about things other than those topics on as we progress on our podcast journey. But we just kind of wanted to touch on something different for this one. Our first suggestion. Shout out that again
to you guys, Purple Crystal 2. Shout out again for the advice. aka Miss L, aka Tequila. Those are characters she's played in my campaign. So nice. Shout out to that. If you guys have any other suggestions,
let us know. We want to hear in the comments. We want tell us, message us, let us know. We definitely we're definitely open to to any kind of topics she wants to talk about, and we sometimes we'll just do some random stuff. Like I said last week, we had Kaldheim, and we're doing this week. Probably got some upcoming product stuff in the future. Also too, we are looking at doing some maybe some box openings, some case openings, things for
maybe some deck profiles as well.
Deck profiles, for some card games, just so you guys can get a feel for. And those will be like not on our main like weekly podcast, but like a separate playlist of deck profiles or deck tips, for this archetype or that archetype, and kind of how to play them better, So in our opinions,
it'll be a lot of fun.
So, but appreciate you guys hanging out with us again on this third installment of Cardboard Champs
podcast. Just remember to like,
share, subscribe,
and hit that notification bell.
Yeah, so you can get them notifications. You can know we go live and those things. So
make sure again to share this to everybody else. We appreciate all
the support so far
we get, and put a comment down below so we know, and we might shout you out.
That's right. Thank you everybody for your time. We'll see you next time.
The Cardboard Champs are out.